is none other than Grant Pritchard. Grant is certainly one of those subject matter experts that we need to hear more from. So Grant, welcome to this show.
Kia ora, Matt. Great to meet you, mate.
Yeah, likewise.
Really well,
I think this is a long overdue, and we're certainly going to have to do this in person sometime soon. So apologies that it's over a screen today. But but Grant, perhaps we will use the first moment simply to allow you to introduce yourself and to let us know a little bit more about yourself.
Sure thing. Thanks, Matt. And hi, everybody. Look, I am an in-house lawyer in New Zealand based in Auckland. I work at Spark. I am a workplace mental health advocate. And so that's my passion. My profession is the law. My passion is transforming how we talk about and address mental health at work. And I firmly believe in the power and potential of workplaces to play a massive role in how we can improve New Zealand's statistics in this space.
Yeah, amazing. Gosh, that was so succinct as well. That was a great intro. Thank you. And it's really, like I said, it's great to have you with us here today. So clearly an extremely important, very timely subject matter. So from your experience and from perhaps what you're seeing in the workplace at the moment, what would be some of the top issues that are presenting themselves today, do you see?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. I think COVID has resulted in a lot of changes in how we work, how we think about work. And so there's a little bit of a hangover there where, flexible working has become more and more common, that people don't have a healthy enough relationship to their work practices within the home environment. And so that itself is becoming a little bit of a risk factor in terms of how we structure our day to make sure that we are working in a really healthy way, so that we don't just think, oh, it's working from home, so it's therefore good. I think also the increasing pace and openness with which we're talking about mental well-being, there's an increasing demand as well for us to be doing more about that. We all have mental health. 4 in 4 of us have got mental health, and interestingly, it's not 1 in 8, but 8 in 10 of us will have experience during our lives of mental ill health or mental distress, or will know someone who has. And so this is a universal human issue. And so, the reason I talk publicly about this stuff is that I've seen the great things that workplaces can do. You don't just need to be a risk factor for your people. You can be a protective factor. The workplace can be a rock for somebody whose personal world may be hell in a handbasket, and they come to work every day and they find safety and purpose and connection and all of those good things. And so I think there's a lot of issues around burnout and anxiety, a lot of issues to do with, I think it's managing the pressure performance curve, right? Like you can, having no pressure and no stress is actually just as bad, because then you get sort of boredom or bore out, I think is the term for it. And so I think we're increasingly in an intense working environment. And so people are working at peak or stretch right on the top of that performance curve for too long. And it means that they're dropping over the edge into fatigue and burnout and exhaustion. And so that is a real issue for people in New Zealand workplaces. So I've talked long enough, probably rambled on, but feel free to interrupt me anytime.
No, that's cool. As you're speaking, are you in a position to reflect on some of the initiatives you're doing in-house currently and some of the projects that you might be working on?
Sure thing. Yeah, look, I think, there are great things going on in workplaces across New Zealand. One of the reasons why I was on Breakfast TV this morning was just to talk about a new awards program that I've helped establish called the Headfoot Awards. And it's about shining a light on just those very things, the stories, the little victories, the big breakthroughs that people are experiencing within the workplace, because the natural Kiwi culture is very much one of not wanting to be a tall poppy. And so you have these, I describe them as silent victories, where great things happen in a workplace and then nobody bloody hears about it. And so that, I think, is a real lost opportunity. And so what I'm seeing across New Zealand is more of a focus, not just on, well, let's talk about mental health, but thinking, as humans in the workplace, what can I do as an individual? Like, what more can I learn? What more can I know? How can I build my confidence and capability? How do I change my team culture so it's really positive? How do I be a good pathway to support to the people around me that I care about at work and home? And then what can we do in my team? Like, what could we do together? Because that's where the rubber really hits the road. That team environment, I think, team cultures, I think, are changing in New Zealand, so that there isn't just, because you can't really have safety on the topic of mental health if everyone's safe to talk about it, but then when you do talk about it, it's sort of like awkward silence. We're we're talking about it. What do we do? And so I think that building, and it doesn't just happen overnight. Building the confidence and the skills and the knowledge in this space is so powerful for teams. That's what I'm seeing, is things like, what are we doing in our team meetings? Are we doing a real proper check-in? Not how busy are you, but how are you really doing? What's life like for you at the start of every meeting? So there's an opportunity there to get below the surface. I think in New Zealand, I describe us in the workplace as figure skating when it comes to relational connections. And so we're not doing any deep diving. We only see the surface. We only see that very shallow level of how people are doing, and it means that you don't see the why, you just see the what. So it's really heartening to see more real workplace conversations happening with that stuff, and more programs, right? More learning, an increase in online learning. Mental Health Foundation has done some incredible work in this space. There is some e-learning that they've released for people leaders in New Zealand. So anyone who's managing a team, if you go to learnmhf.nz, that's learnmhf.nz, they've got a fantastic 3-module course that is aimed at getting any person who leads a team totally up to the races, like ready to go when it comes to creating a mentally healthy team, covering all of the key topics. And that's unbelievable. And it's completely free. And so that kind of thing of like, not just can we talk about it, but how do we learn together? How do we grow together? It's just really powerful.
So MHF.
learnmhf.nz.
Okay, I'm just going to put that across the banner because that's an amazing insight in itself. Thank you.
I couldn't recommend it more highly, and I kind of gave a bit of feedback on it while it was being developed, so I'm slightly biased.
Cool. Oh, that sounds amazing. So I'm just going to put that on now because as you were talking, I was just taking some notes. I'm basically my notepad is just covered in scribbles now because there's been so much awesome insight over the last
You need a bigger book.
I think so, but some of the takeaways from what you've just said is, the importance of putting the mask on yourself first, right? So taking care of your own health, both physically and mentally, then ensuring that you're asking the right types of questions with your team. But as well as that, and getting comfortable with that, is ensuring that you are recognizing what is actually working well in practice as well. So it's acknowledging those achievements, because I find that a lot as well, like reviewing health and safety systems. One of the questions that I routinely raise is, cool, so we're focused in on all this negative stuff. Let's just park that for a minute because I'm getting a bit tired of talking about the negatives. How do you reward and acknowledge those leaders and those individuals that come up with the great ideas? And often it's just silence. There's a bit of tumbleweed goes past in the office, and it's like, well, if we're not acknowledging, if we're not embracing and encouraging people to do these things and to make a noise about it, then we're missing a really key piece of the puzzle. So that really resonates with me. I think that's really important.
And what you've picked up on there is the importance and power of this as a workplace culture piece.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't recognizing and celebrating the people who have got lived experience of mental distress or mental illness and are sharing their stories and smashing the stigma and better supporting their workmates and creating safer conversations around mental health, then your culture won't change. It can veer very quickly into initiative-based responses where it's about what's this next thing that we're doing, and yet we've got the fruit bowls there, and yet we've got EAP, and now we've got EAP posters up, and so it can become initiative-based rather than connective and impact-focused.
Absolutely, which kind of ties really neatly with what Paul was talking about before with the BIM approach to construction. And before that, we were listening to Deanne Brabant, who was talking about how we get lost behind the paperwork and the documentation, and actually all it really needs is a good old conversation, just to share that knowledge around.
Just really ask, just listen, right?
Yeah, no, I love it. So for yourself, is there any top tips or pieces of advice? You've given us heaps already, but is there any key takeaways you'd love people to walk away or to think about?
Yeah, thank you for giving me that chance. There's just so much that I could share.
Mm,
But I think for all of us, just being humble and reflective
mm,
and thinking, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. I don't need to fix everybody and solve everyone's problems. But I'm going, as an individual, just for your listeners and an audience, just to make a personal decision to care and act.
mm,
And I think sometimes the fear of making a mistake, especially in this space, which is quite complicated, it can get
mm,
in the way of us doing anything at all. And that is, in my experience, one of the big risk factors is
yeah.
actually we let the fear of like, who are we to be getting up in people's business? And so I just am encouraging anyone really who's listening, pick up that mantle. So
Mm,
if you think of New Zealand as a big waka with 5 million people in it,
yeah.
how many people have picked up their oar and are rowing that waka forward to this more mentally healthy future?
Mm,
Because it's on the horizon there. At the
yeah.
moment, there might be 4,980,000 people just sitting there looking at the view and wondering why we're not there already and how come we
Mm,
haven't had more progress. But what happens if a huge chunk of our 2.3 million workers all of a sudden better understand their own mental well-being, have
mm,
great mental health literacy, an emotional vocabulary, they've got great skills and confidence at work. They don't just leave them at work, they take it home with them and help their families and friends and loved ones and teammates. That is the halo
yeah.
of really facing effectively into mental health at work.
Oh,
That's the payback. That could
mhm,
make all the difference between New Zealand having the worst stats in the OECDs in some of these facets of mental well-being to the
mm,
best. And so I believe in the power and potential for workplaces to just totally change the game. So I just encourage you to be part of that. You can do something too, and you can influence within your sphere of influence. So I can't wait to hear your stories. If you're doing something great in the workplace, go to headfordawards.org and do enter, because we want to hear your
mm.
stories, no matter how big or small your workplace is. We want to hear the great stuff that you're doing. Thank you so much for having me on here, and I really believe in what you're doing, Matt. So keep it
Well,
up,
thank
mate.
you,
This is
Grant.
a big moonshot indeed.
Yeah, it really is a big moonshot, but by having the support of people like yourself, it is very, very achievable. So thank you so much for your time. We are definitely catching up sometime soon, and
Kia ora.
hopefully we'll be able to pick your brains in a similar format in the foreseeable too. So have a wonderful day, and thank you once again.
Thank you.